When no eyes never seen, no ears never heard, no mind can imagine. Paradise, no more tests, no more tears, no more trials. Paradise, just to hold my mother in my arms. Paradise, where I'll gaze into my children's eyes. Paradise, gardens beneath where rivers will flow. Paradise, when nothing will hurt anymore. Won't hurt anymore.
Hey, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Good morning.
Good morning.
Assalamualaikum.
Wa alaikum salam. How's everyone?
Alhamdulillah.
We're here.
We're here.
Our coffee.
Right.
Mhm.
Do we at least have our hey?
We're ready for it today.
Hello. Oh, how was everyone's week?
Busy? Stressful?
It was pretty good.
Yeah,
All
yeah.
of the above.
I
And
would
my
say,
weekend is too short.
yeah, the weekend is way too short. It's kind of long. You
Right.
need one of these holidays to come up or something.
Thank you, right?
Good Lord. It has been a long week and a very short weekend.
Mhm.
Yes.
Alhamdulillah, we try to take it all in stride. But I'm glad to hear that everyone has had a relatively good week, and we are back. Hello, Mr. Whiskers. I mean, that's not Mr. Whiskers. That's Kitty Kitty. Ya Allah. See, my brain. Hi, Kitty Kitty. Yeah. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and get started and open up with some dua. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. Once again, everyone that is watching and tuning in, whether you are tuning in on Facebook or YouTube, welcome, welcome, welcome. We are excited to have you. Welcome to another episode of Sunday Morning Coffee. And without further ado, Khalila, take it away.
All right. So here's our announcements for today. Once again, our mugs are still available. Here you go. Still available for purchase on our site for $25 plus shipping. So please, if you have not gotten one yet, try to get yours today. Still available. Yes. And like Zainab just said, we are streaming live on YouTube. So we started that, about 3 episodes ago. We are now streaming live on YouTube. So be sure to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel to see all of our latest episodes and videos. So you can look for us on YouTube at Muslim Wholehearted Initiative. And also be sure to look out for more in-person events like the barbecue we had the community barbecue a couple of weekends ago. It was a huge success, alhamdulillah. So be sure to be on the lookout for more in-person events such as that one as more COVID restrictions are lifted. We're very excited about that. And have you signed up yet for our special needs mini course facilitated by our very own Quasia Rakib? Shout out. If you have not done so, please, after the show, register for the mini course. It's going to be on June 12th and 13th, as well as June 19th. We're very excited about it. It's going to be very, very informative. Loads of information is going to be available for you guys. So if you have not signed up for it yet, it is called Special Needs Parents Reclaiming Power by Releasing Fear, Anger, and Guilt. If you have not registered for this amazing workshop series, please go ahead and do so. Seats are going fast. Make sure you register today, right after the show. All right. And you can register at our website, which is wholeheartedmuslim.com, and you will see the registration page available on our website. So please do that today. And we're going to run a little promo ad now for her upcoming workshop series.
Over the course of 17 years in the special needs community, I have worked with hundreds of families. I am also the mom to a beautiful teen with autism. It always amazed me how, despite having access to countless hours of therapy and going to the best of schools, some families seemed to thrive while others fell apart. Some children were calm, grounded, loving, and courageous despite their challenges, while others were constantly fearful, anxious, and withdrawn. As a special needs parent, the best gift you can give your child is to heal your own trauma and to release negative emotions. Fear, anger, and guilt will rob you of the joy, happiness, and freedom you yearn for. On the flip side, when you are able to love and accept yourself fully, your child, your spouse, and your home as a whole will shift immensely. So, if anything I said resonates with you, I invite you to join my 3-day mini course beginning June 12th. I promise you will not be disappointed.
I thoroughly enjoy that every single time we watch it. I really do.
I love it. It just gets better every time I see it.
Right, exactly. I 100% agree. I think this is such a wonderful workshop.
Yes, please. Yes, sign up, please. It's going to be amazing. I mean, just that promo alone. If that didn't really pique your interest, I mean, come on. Like, it's going to be so amazing.
Right.
And the good news is we've extended the early bird special for that workshop until tomorrow. So you still have time to take advantage of our early bird special. So like I said, as soon as this show is finished, please go to our website, click that registration link, register for the upcoming workshop series. You will not be disappointed, I promise. We're very excited about it. So please, or if you know someone else who may benefit from it, please guide them to the webpage, show them where the registration is, and please send them the information. Send them the promo video. We have that also posted. So please share the information with whoever, friends, family, neighbors, whoever. Share the information with them, please, so they can please benefit from this amazing, amazing series that Quincy has worked so hard on, and you guys are going to love. Also, for a $50 donation, you can also attend one of our upcoming workshops for free. So with a $50 donation, you can include our also free mug, and as well as you can attend one of our workshops for free. So that registration fee will be waived for you with a $50 donation. So take advantage of that as well. Also, while you're on our website, don't forget to sign up for our monthly newsletter. Please do that on our website. That is also available for you guys.
Yes, I did just want to quickly chime in and add that when you go to make the $50 donation, you actually cannot do that from the registration page if you're doing it with the intent of attending one of our workshops. So what you need to do is you need to click on donate, click on donate, and it'll bring you to our PayPal page. In the comments, and we'll put something up on the website explaining all of this, but in the comments, you're going to indicate which one of our 3 workshops you are interested in attending for free with your $50 donation. And then you're also going to include your email address, which should be included in the PayPal information anyway, but just to make sure we have all of your information, include your email address in that as well. And from there, we will go ahead and email you the registration information, okay? Because you're doing it a little bit differently, so you won't get the automatically generated email that gives you all of the registration information. And as Khalila mentioned, tomorrow is the last day for the early bird special. So tomorrow is the last day to purchase the workshop for $97. After that, it goes back to the regular price of $125. We are only extending it for one more day. So please, 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 we implore you to take advantage of this discount. There is a lot of information that Quasia will be disseminating, and it'll be a benefit to all of us, right? So attend. So thank you. I just wanted to chime in and mention that. Naima, go ahead and take it away.
Okay, so today we are going to be talking about Tarbiyyah and raising our children. And I think this is a topic that is, or cultivating our children, to be more specific. And why do we use the term cultivating as opposed to, raising our children because we're trying to get out the best from them. And I think this topic is so, personally, I believe that this topic is so important because so many of us are struggling. How are we raising our children in Muslim children that love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the sunnah of the Prophet in a time where everything that is related to Islam seems completely foreign or alien to our children. Just some of the basic foundation, the foundation of Islam is almost deemed, to be, very conservative, or if not the term conservative, just to be preposterous in our society now. So I believe that's, the main topic. We have, we're going to go through a couple of different ways to help parents. And Zainab, did you have anything else you wanted to add to that?
Yes, thank you. Absolutely. So I really love this topic, right? Because all of us, alhamdulillah, are parents, and we're always trying to be the best parents that we can be, and all of us are. And sometimes we excel in certain areas, and sometimes we struggle in certain areas. And this is not to be a judgment. This is really just to be a source of support and assistance, because raising children is one of the most, if not the hardest job in the world. Yes. And then trying to raise them to be righteous by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's permission adds an extra layer of difficulty given the world in which we live, right? So there's so many things. There's so many things that are coming at our kids and that are really just like testing them. And we're combating with that. We're combating with their own nafs, right? And then we're combating with our deficiencies, right? Like we're combating with the things that we personally struggle with. So I know for me, like I felt a bit lost on how to assess, whether or not I was raising my daughter well, and what else I should be doing or even not doing. You know what I mean? So, I realized that I needed to go back to the definition of tarbiyyah, right? What does it mean? And making that my yardstick. I thought that was really, really important, right? So we usually use this term to refer to a child's development and education. But I actually, and Khalila and I both came across some definitions.
Yes.
I'll go ahead and let Khalila give the definition, inshallah, but I wanted to go to the root of the word, where it actually comes from, what it's derived from, because that also gives context for what tarbiyyah is. So Khalila, go ahead.
So I did do a little research into it and looked at what linguistically it means in Arabic, tarbiyyah, which means to increase, nurture, grow, rear, or loftiness. That was kind of the definition I came across, the Arabic definition, linguistically speaking. But it also means the development and training of people in various aspects, right? So what does that look like? What does that mean? It can be directly, such as through teaching, such as through verbal or visual communication, or it can be indirectly, like through being a role model for someone.
No, right. And it's interesting because as I was looking this up, I was kind of like, oh, I learned, and this is actually the word tarbiyyah comes from the root verb arab, right? And so it said, who is your Lord? They then say, my Lord, Rab is Allah, who has nurtured me, given me tarbiyyah, right? SubhanAllah. And then it says, in all of creation with his favors and blessings. And this is actually taken from the explanation of the three fundamental principles, authored by Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab, hafidhahullah. And the explanation was given by Sheikh Uthaymeen. And he explains that tarbiyyah, which means to take care of that which is necessary for the development of the one being raised, right? And he mentions that the word arab is derived from the word tarbiyyah, to nurture. And then he goes on with the ayah where he says, who has nurtured me in all of creation with his favors and blessings. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the first one to cultivate and nurture us, subhanallah, right? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one that nurtures us. Allah is is the one that provides us first and foremost with tarbiyyah. And what we do for our children is an extension of that. And I thought that was really, really profound. Like, how do we now extend the nurturing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala extends to us from infinite rahmah to our children, right? And one of the things, sorry, I'm trying to make sure that I go over my notes, is to, you know, rear them and raising them to be good, righteous Muslims with a sound and complete, and that are sound and complete in all matters, right? In health, mentality, religion, spirituality, ethics, management, and creativity, right? So this is a complete tarbiyyah that we're entrusted with for our children, right? Now, if you're growing up in like a predominantly, especially for us as Black folks, one of the things that our parents would instill in us is, okay, I want them to speak perfect English, right? I want them to get good grades, right? You know, I want them to be seen and not heard, right? You guys have heard that before.
I've heard that before, yeah.
Like,
Not my family, but I've heard people say
right. Like, I want children to be seen and not heard. Right. They should be clean and not messy. You know, you don't come out right. You know what I mean? Especially if Caribbean. I'm not Caribbean, but I've grown up around enough. You know, your child, she look a hot mess. You know, y'all too. So, you know, and they never ever answer back, right?
No.
They never answer back.
Not unless you want to lose teeth.
Right.
Walking around looking like Snaggletooth.
And this is what we understand, right? On a basic level as to be tarbiyyah, right? But that's not how it's defined by Islam, right? We're raising children by Allah's permission that have to have the ability to discern, right? They have to question. And, you know, and that's different from the old school way of raising our children. We should still teach them to have respect, because this is from Islam. Right. But we should still also teach them to question as well.
Zainab, I'm sorry to interject. I just wanted to add in one of the main things that growing up, you actually, as you were speaking, I remembered, you know, I've always heard people use this. Alhamdulillah, maybe not my family in particular, but other Caribbean families, do as I say, not as I do.
Oh, yes.
And maybe it's not only limited to Caribbean families, but I've definitely heard this saying a lot. And if we really kind of like pull back the layers of this, do as I say, not as I do. So then as a parent, that means that you're not necessarily following the rules and the laws and the quote unquote tradition that you are expecting of your children to do, which ultimately is unfair and it's setting a poor example.
Right.
So I think those are also like a lot of things that, you know, the kids now are very different. Right. Maybe hearing that or having to deal with that for my generation, your generation, older people was acceptable because kids listened and they didn't question things. But that's almost non-existent now.
You know, Naima, when you say that, as you mentioned that, what comes to mind is like an unintentional teaching of hypocrisy.
True.
You know, Quasia, what are your thoughts?
Okay. Yeah, no, I definitely agree with the point that Naima was making. And it's interesting because we do have these two identities, you know, being African American, Afro-Caribbean, but I'm constantly reminded that our identity as Muslims has to supersede that, you know. So, and I'll give you an example, because I feel like with 3 young children, I'm constantly telling them, okay, sit down when you drink. Did you say Bismillah? Like all these things that are fundamental and the foundation. And when they say, oh, why? Or why is it important? It's on the tip of my tongue to say, because I told you so, you know, but it's like I have to fight that back. Because no, they want to know on a deeper level. They're not just doing this because it's part of a ritual. They want to know why. Okay, you have to make a fresh wudu. What's the benefits of making wudu? So it's always that tug and pull between I told you so versus let me really explain why we're doing this and make it substantial for you.
So
I think a lot of parents, and I think a lot of parents struggle with that. To piggyback of what basically said, it's like that
Yeah.
culture versus the deen, and like sometimes they do clash. You know, fighting cultural because everybody has their cultural baggage, right? That they
Yeah.
bring into it. And then you're fighting, of course, the deen. What's Islamically correct? What am I supposed to be doing as a Muslim parent? I think that's a struggle we all have.
It is.
as parents.
Yeah, it's difficult.
Yeah.
It is. It is a
very-
challenge. Yeah.
It's very
Right.
difficult.
No.
So
Go ahead, Naima. You were going to say something?
Yeah. So like I wanted to say that I just kind of wanted to look at, I think it was like 2, where it says, how can we instill love for the deen in our children, and how should we start it? And going off of, you know, that idea of what I was saying is do as I say, not as I do. Alhamdulillah, I almost feel like I had a cheat sheet, in the sense that teaching middle school has been the biggest cheat sheet in parenting, aside from being an educator. Because like when you're dealing with other people and you're in this realm of education, alhamdulillah, mashallah, I feel like that it really sets you up. It gives you an advantage, in my personal opinion. I could be wrong. But for me, I felt as though it gave me an advantage being in the field of education, understanding adolescents better, and then being a teacher, and that was different. And then, alhamdulillah, having the opportunity to having taught almost every elementary grade level, and then moving up to middle school. So, alhamdulillah, I can almost say that I've taught every class between kindergarten up until 8th grade. And I've had, you know, after school programs with high school students as well. And to get to the point, the biggest things that students complain about is that they feel like sometimes, oh, their parents are liars. And I'm like, liars? Well, what do you mean? Or they're like, they're hypocrites. And I'm like, well, what do you mean? And some of my students will say like, oh, well, you know, my parents, or I'll hear adults say, stop gossiping. Don't backbite. And you go in the kitchen and you're on the phone and you're gossiping. You're backbiting.
Right.
Or you'll say, you know, why are you doing, why are you doing this? Or your clothes are too tight, or you're doing this, or this is wrong, or why are you putting on makeup? And you as the adult, you're doing it. And so to the children now, this concept as do as I say, not as I do is completely foreign. They need an explanation. They have been raised in a society where we're teaching our children to be open-minded and creative thinkers, and not to only follow directions. And it has its good side to that, and it has so many negative sides to that. But subhanallah, you know, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam gave us an explanation for everything. So it's like, okay, so if this is the explanation, let me live like this, and let me do this. And so I think in terms of me saying that I got a cheat sheet, it's like, oh, okay, well, I've been teaching middle school, so by the time my kids became, you know, the same age, I felt like I understood them a little bit better, and it allowed me to see where I needed to be a little bit more lenient, and areas that I needed to fundamentally change myself.
Right.
In order to, one, build that bond, create that connection, allow them to love Islam, and allow them to explain why they disliked something without me attacking them. And for us to build on that and learn to reason with why we should love something, even though everybody else is doing it, and why we should hate something, even though everybody else thinks it's okay.
Right. You know, Naima, subhanAllah, I think you bring up so many good points that I definitely want us all to expound on, right? And, you know, one of the questions that we pose is, you know, what should Muslim parents be doing to help their children grow in Islam? And I think the first thing, and you touched on this, is that we should be living in ourselves, right?
Exactly.
Our children are like hypocrisy. They have hypocrisy radars, and if we're telling them to do, as you mentioned, do as I say, but not as I do, they're kind of like, well, wait a minute, you're not doing this.
Mm-hmm.
You're living life a certain way. You're not doing what you're commanding me to do. You know, why would you ask me to do something that you yourself aren't doing? And they pick up on that. And what we're teaching them is to not be, and I'm going to kind of go a little deep on this, but to not be authentic, right? To kind of live for the show. And I know for me, one of the things that I do with my daughter, I only have one, I have one, alhamdulillah. But the one thing that I do is I try to be as transparent as possible, right? Because I believe that transparency builds trust. So right now my daughter is 6. So in teaching her to make salah on a consistent level, she prays with me in Jama'ah 1 salah a day, right? So she'll complain as kids do, oh, mommy, I'm tired. I wanted to finish coloring, or whatever she wants to do. And I'll immediately respond to her, you know, mommy is tired too. Mm-hmm. Look at all that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us, right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us so much, and all he asks for is this small amount of time out of our day to give us all that we have. And I'll point out the things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us. And we know that we can't count the things that Allah has given us, right? Like we can't number them, but just kind of making it real for her. Listen, you being tired is not invalid, right? Something being challenging is not to be dismissed, but it doesn't mean that you don't have the responsibility to overcome that challenge, right? Because I think sometimes as parents, when we see that something is hard for our children, we just leave it there. Oh, this is too much for her. This is too much for him. So I'm not going to challenge him to overcome that. And we do our kids a disservice, and we're not teaching them to be resilient.
I agree. I absolutely agree with that. We do them a disservice when we do that. And as far as I like that, Zainab, I really like that this explanation of salah being grateful, as opposed to, oh my God, you have to get up and make the salah. And I remember even the school that I work in that I told some of the people that call the students for salah, I was like, approach them differently. Right. Oh, well, they're not doing this and they're not doing that. And I don't know if they pray at home. Okay. All of that doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. Me telling an 8th grade group of girls was so completely different. How did you get them to go pray? Like 40 girls. I was like, look at everything that you had. If somebody gave you a gift, what's the first thing that you say? Right. You say thank you. That's right. I was like, you got up today. You're breathing. You have your eyesight. It was like we talk about humanities all the time. Look at all the suffering around the world. Should we not say thank you? Oh, okay. Everybody's going for salah. How did you do that? I was just honest with them. Sometimes also it's the way that we're approaching things. True. If we're using Islam as a means of oppression as opposed to liberation, right, it will push the youth away faster than we can blink our eyes. Right. Right. So law should never be something that our kids feel oppressed to do.
I think that's such a good point. Now, Khalil, you wanted to comment?
Yeah, I agree 100%. I think that's an excellent approach to have. And I think that sometimes it could be part of the problem. Like, so a lot of times with adults, our approach to the youth, our approach to the children, especially the older ones who are now required to pray, is wrong. And again, come at that with that aggressive way. You know how young people are. As soon as you come at them a certain way, they're going to immediately dig the heels in that much further. You know, that's just, you know, developmentally, that's where they are. We know that, especially with teenagers and young adults. But if you change your approach, as Naima did, I thought it was a beautiful approach, and how she encouraged and the girls in her class to go make salah. I think that was a wonderful way to put it and a great way to approach it. And it really probably made them think and reflect and say, oh, you're right. I didn't think about it like that, but now that you put it that way, okay, yeah, let me go make a salah, you know? I think that's a beautiful way to handle it. And I think as adults, we need to sometimes rethink and how we approach our children, and and think about it from a different angle, a different perspective. It's like, okay, again, we talk about youth, children. They're not thinking as we do. They're approaching things, where they think, where they even perceive things and understand things is different from us. And so when sometimes we do have to change the way our approach to things in the deen, whether it be salah, wudu, anything, we have to sometimes change our approach. Okay, I can't come at her like I would come at another adult. We think about from a child's perspective or a young person's perspective and come at it a different way to get them to think a little more and reflect.
Right.
Most children respond much more positive if you come at them that way.
Correct.
I think that was an excellent point you brought up.
Right.
And Zainab, also you were saying, you had mentioned, being transparent, and I think one thing that we don't do is that sometimes we tend to, I think, who was it, Kwesi and Kalila, you were saying, we teach our cultures sometimes, and what I noticed is that if we actually teach Islam, it kind of alleviates a lot of these issues. And I also remember towards the salah thing, the salah issue, I said, did you guys know that not praying takes you into kufr? And they were like, what? I said, yeah, you could be wearing hijab, you could be fasting during Ramadan, but if you are not making your salah, you are not actively a Muslim. You're not a Muslim. That is, I said, could you believe it, guys, that you could actually, I even said this to them. I was like, you can drink and ask for forgiveness. You can do all of these haram things and ask for forgiveness as long as you're still making salah. I was like, well, your salah is like invalidated for 40 days if you go and drink on purpose. I was like, but the point is that you need to be making salah to actively be a Muslim. And that also was very shocking to them. So wait a minute, my hijab. Okay, what about it? Well, wait a minute, fasting during Ramadan. Okay, well, what about it? There's 5 pillars. Are you following? Yes, you've acknowledged La ilaha illallah, but are you doing the second part? Chrissy, you're on mute. Oh, I thought she's talking to us.
She is. I thought she was talking too.
And I think it's important as parents, we need to have these conversations with our kids. What you just said, these are the conversations we need to be having with our children. These open, honest, frank discussions with them and breaking it down like that and explaining to them and giving it to them. We need to be having these conversations with our children.
Right.
I think when we give those definitions and have these open, honest, frank discussions with our children and really break it down for them and tell them this is what it is. But as a result of not doing X, Y, Z, this is going to be the result. It makes it that much clearer and they understand it better. And once they have that understanding, then they'll be more willing and more likely to do it. Right. And now that they have that knowledge, it's okay, now I understand why it's so important and why I need to do this and what could be the repercussions or results of me not doing this,
Right. And it's so interesting that I had a student that gave trouble from the beginning of the year for salah time. After I explained that, I didn't have to ever say, go make wudu to make salah, because at that point, she realized, oh my goodness, I won't be Muslim anymore if I'm not praying. Right. Imagine if somebody had let her know that 2 years ago.
Exactly.
I think that what you guys are mentioning is really important. Questia, did you want to chime in?
Yeah, I wanted to chime in. So it was interesting. I think it goes back to like this whole love versus fear thing. And I think we kind of touched upon that, but especially in the earlier years, we should really focus on the love of Allah, so on and so forth. And one thing that I've been starting to do, and I notice it's been helping, is kind of like modeling. So it's so interesting because we can be so naive when it comes to our personal life and our children and the religion, but we do things in these professional settings. So as educators or even as, therapists, we oftentimes model thought processes of how we derive a decision, right? So if a child's struggling, okay, with double-digit math, you don't say, well, why didn't you get it? This is the answer. You kind of go through the thought process. You might write it out for them. So that's kind of for me where gratitude, where dua kind of steps in. So lately I might be in the car and I'll say, whoo, for a moment there, I thought that car wasn't going to start. Subhanallah, alhamdulillah, like sometimes just a random thought, But, and I might be a little bit exaggeratory, but wow, oh my goodness. Or do you see that accident? But Allah saved us. Aren't we thankful? And of course, you know, I am being a little bit, I guess with my voice and stuff like that. But I would say kind of doing those things, because, oh, be thankful, be thankful. The modeling, I think, for a lot of us is the missing piece. And I love the Kalila when you said, like, we're thinking of them as adults. It's like somehow when we can understand these things in a professional setting, but when it comes to the Muslim community, it goes out the window, and you can't understand why an 8-year-old has trouble focusing in Salah. Well, because they're 8 years old, the same reason they have trouble focusing at their desk.
Exactly.
You know, what's wrong with you know? And like Zainab said, we're not giving them a pass, but kind of breaking it down and being human, like from one human to the next. Oh, you know, sometimes I actually have trouble focusing in Salah. Is usually when something's going on and I don't take a moment to deal with it, or sometimes I take a few deep breaths. Like, what do I do? Let me show from one human to the next and kind of give them some tools and being less judgmental. So yeah, those are my thoughts about kind of collecting everything everyone said.
No, I think
in total agreement.
I think you make some really, really excellent points, right? And I think that one of the things that you said, Quasia, that I think we should spend a little bit of time on is the importance of dua, right? The importance of making dua for our children, teaching them the power of dua, teaching them to make dua for themselves, right? This is so, so important because we can do all of the right things and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can choose for them to not be guided.
SubhanAllah.
And I think first and foremost, recognizing that their hidayah, their guidance is not from us. It is from Allah. So seeking Allah, asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to guide them, but then
you
also—
know, Zainab, you bring up another important point, and this is, oh, sorry.
That's okay. That's okay. Go ahead.
Okay, now you bring up another important point, and this is something else that I need to start doing more, and I started it, but a lot of times we have to bring God into the conversation. So if I'm having, and we have to do better. So if I'm having a headache, I need to take ibuprofen. I have a headache.
Right.
Not, oh Allah, I'm taking this ibuprofen. Allow it to relieve my headache. Like the subtle difference. So I think once again, going back to modeling, even our language needs to change. When it comes to the dua, because that is their direct conversation with their Lord. So I guess thank you, Zainab, like instilling that intimate connection. Yeah.
Right. I have a funny story about that. It was Leanne was about to get in trouble, and I heard her. I heard her in the room. Oh Allah, please don't let mommy be mad at me. I'm getting in trouble.
Oh.
And I laughed, but it also brought tears to my eyes because in that moment, what she was demonstrating was that she recognized that Allah is above mommy.
Yeah.
Right? That's the one you called.
Wow.
Right? I was like, in that moment, I was like, oh, I was cracking up laughing.
That is funny though.
She did not know I was hearing her. This was like a really sincere moment for her. And I was like, you know what? I'm not, you're not going to get in trouble. You're not going to get in trouble. We had a conversation about what took place, but she didn't get in trouble. Right. And me hearing that was from Allah. Me hearing her say that in that moment was from Allah. Her calling on Allah was perhaps bi'idhnillah from her recognition that Allah is greater than mommy, that Allah is greater than everything. And he is the only one that can remove us from difficulty. And I was so proud of her in that moment. I wanted to reward her, but she really did. She did deserve a punishment. But and we just had a conversation about that. But again, instilling in them a sense that you go to Allah before you even come to me. You want a toy, you make dua to Allah about it. And then we have that conversation. Right? So that's teaching them you call on Allah and then you do the work. Right? Because doing the work is not the absence of calling on Allah. It's recognizing that he is the one who ultimately puts barakah in those steps.
SubhanAllah.
That's an excellent.
You know, Zainab, you know, this is such a poignant point, even for us as adults. And a lot of times we all have children. Raising our children, we're kind of re-raising ourselves, and we really see our flaws. And if, you
Absolutely.
know, take a moment and say, whoa. But I was just thinking about that when you said, you know, mommy is not above Allah. Like Allah is above mommy. And I think so often, and this is pretty huge, because so often we do find, you know, for young children, to a certain extent, their parents is, you know, they lay the law. So if mommy or daddy don't catch me, I'm not in trouble. And we don't instill this omnipotent, you know, Allah is everywhere. And then where does this trickle to? You meet women who it's their husbands and their marriages. You know, I'm doing this because my husband's telling me to do so. Well, sister, did you read it for did you read it for yourself, or do you understand? So we have so many examples, and maybe this is a humanistic trait of us not going directly to the source or having that connection with the source, but putting placeholders. And this kind of goes back to our heart series. I don't want to go too much on a tangent, but it starts in childhood, you know, of having these intermediaries, or having people who we basically give, I guess, this power to. So I love that point, Zainab, and I think it really goes back to so much of what we're talking about. And it starts in childhood. Yeah.
Chrissy, can I add to that? SubhanAllah, like it, as you're saying that, it actually reminded me of something that my mom said. And it does put a big weight on you as a child, but she used to say, when you leave this house, you are a representation of Islam and you are a representation of me. And it does give a huge responsibility on you as a child, but at the same time, it also reminded me something of what you're saying, like Allah is above everything. And I kid you not, when I was in high school, even though I'm wearing hijab and I'm outside and I'm whatever, it was a very big deterrent for me doing a lot of things, because I'm like, wait a minute, it doesn't matter if I can get away with it.
Right.
It doesn't matter, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows. And her telling me that always gave me this, oof, oh God, I'm not even gonna try. Like, I'm giving up. I could have. I mean, God knows I could have gotten in trouble. I mean, mashallah, I grew up in the suburbs. I had a car. I was going to work. I could have gotten in a lot of trouble. But that idea, and like what you were saying about instilling it in your children, okay, I'm trusting you. And I think that's also something that we have to give our kids. And like, I'm starting with myself and saying this, I have to be able to trust that what I have taught you,
Right.
I'm trusting obviously in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then after that, I'm putting my trust in myself, that what I'm doing as an adult, as a parent, is good enough, that inshallah the trust within my child is good enough for them to make the right decisions. And for us not to hover. Like, yes, we have to guide, but if we don't give our children the opportunity or the responsibility, or just, okay, hey, this is what we're doing, they have to be able to make good choices for themselves. If they're not able to do that, then how can we trust that one day when they graduate from high school and we're not hovering over them, that they're not going to act buck wild in college and act crazy?
You know, Emma, I think you make a really good point. What I want to do is kind of go back to like some practical steps that we can impart on parents in what they can do to cultivate, to instill tarbiyyah in their children, right? So a couple of things that I've jotted down is teaching them about Allah, as we were talking about, and making sure first and foremost, making sure you understand who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is, right? By learning his asma wa sifat, his names and attributes, understanding their meanings and how they are applicable to our lives, and then teaching our children that as well, right? I think it's so important. I think one of the biggest things for me when I was coming back to the practice of Islam was learning Allah's names, right? Learning who Allah was so that I knew who he wasn't. So when someone presented Allah to me in a way that I had understood he was not, I was able to discern between the two, right? And I didn't get caught up in their understanding of Allah, but in Allah's understanding of himself based on what he's taught us about himself. The other thing too is the sunnah, right? Like we understand Islam based on Quran and Sunnah. They are not mutually exclusive, and we cannot understand one without the other. So first and foremost, us becoming educated in how Rasulullah SAW interacted with children, how he raised his own children, right? And what are some of the things we need to impart on our children, right? So this does require study, right? How to live every day as a Muslim. So if we don't know these things, it becomes difficult for us to impart those on our children. And it's okay if we don't know it, we don't know these things, but we can learn it together. Right? And this can be a fun bonding experience for us and our children. There's some books that I have that we go over, myself and my daughter, we go over like Islamic studies. And there's some things in the books that I didn't know. And when we come across those things, I'm like, subhanAllah, look, Layla, you and mommy learned something new together, right? Like we're constantly learning together. And this built a bond for us. And when she goes back to that, she's like, oh, remember, mommy, you didn't know that, but we learned it together. Like, yes, Islam is attainable, even at my age and even at your age. We can still learning, and we're constantly learning. And this is something that we're constantly doing. Salah, right? Understanding the importance of Salah for yourself. Getting enthusiastic about Salah for yourself, because sometimes we come to Salah, we stand before Allah apathetic. We're not excited. We're not excited about praying, making Salah, and then we wonder why our children are apathetic when they come to the Salah, where they come kicking and screaming, right? They're tired, they're this and they're that. So understanding you're standing before the Lord of the world. You're standing before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? And you can ask him anything you want. And in this moment, practicing gratitude, because how many billions of people don't know Allah? That should make you weep. That out of everything on creation, everyone on creation, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chose you to know him, to truly know him. Like those things before, if you have that in your head before you make salah, and you're standing there with that in your mind, you're not going to pray fast. You're not going to rush through it. You're not going to not sit and do your adhkar. You're not going to not sit and do your sunnah. You're going to say, subhanAllah, I know my Lord. And how many people are walking around confused aimlessly? And we're going to teach that to our kids.
Yeah.
Right? Like there's so many people that are out here and they're lost and confused and they don't know Allah. This is a reason for us to practice gratitude.
Yes, just to piggyback on what you were saying about, again, instilling it early and some practical steps we can take as parents to really teach them the deen and strengthen their connection to Allah. Like you said, again, learning the names of Allah, things of that nature. There's, even for children, there's books, there's so many, mashallah, there's wonderful books and things of that nature that I know as growing up, I wish we didn't really have that. When I was growing up, and now, alhamdulillah, there's so many Muslim authors and things like that who are putting books and stories out there for children on their level so they can understand it in a way that they can understand it and make it interesting and make it fun. So I would definitely recommend parents look for these things. They are available. I know one thing I would do with my daughter every night, we read one of the stories of the prophets. You know, it's a children's book form, but just so she can learn the prophets, you know, of Allah, you know. So we would read that every night, pick a different one every night before she go to bed. So these are things that as parents, practical things that we can do. And if we haven't been doing it, we can start instilling now because it's never too late. And again, when they're young, this is the time to do it because their brains are like sponges and they just soak up that information and knowledge so easily and so quickly. So these are just practical steps as parents you can take. Just have us every night, read a story to your child.
Yeah.
And something my mom even would do, we would have books that we were avid readers in our house. So we would always constantly in the library, always reading. But she would always pick an Islamic story, an Islamic book, and then we would read a regular secular book, you know? So again, for those, if your kid likes, I don't know, Spider-Man or Marvel or whatever, you can still read that story to them, but also pick the Islamic story as well. So they get both, inshallah, when you're reading to them at night. And having that, again, it's also a bonding experience. Having that time with your children or with your child and reading those stories with them will, again, increase that closeness as well as a parent with your child. So this is my recommendation, something that I know I was done with me, my mom, and something that I did with my daughter. So just kind of some advice as parents, something that maybe you might want to do if you haven't been doing it to do with your children. It really makes a difference.
Right. Excellent advice. Koisia, did you want to chime in?
Yeah, I love the idea, Kalila, of the stories. And it's so interesting because I lost my thought that quickly, but it connects. We have to create a safe space for our children. This is part of my workshop, but a safe space for our children to release and their negative emotions, the not so pretty emotions. And I think reading stories is an excellent way for
Mhm.
them to do that because the characters are experiencing these things. Let's
Exactly.
see, what would you do if you was this character? So there's one story I actually read recently, and the title alone, I was like, oh no, I don't know about this. It was about such and such Adam hates the Quran. It was some title that was kind of like this boy does not like reading the Quran. And I was like, oh my goodness. But when I basically in this story, I guess he did not like reading the Quran. He felt disconnected to it, but
Mhm.
he realized, I guess, the plot is that the Quran, because he loved playing video games, the Quran was taken away from his video games. The Quran was almost like is a manual for life. The same way when you get a new video game, you're trying to figure out how can I win this game, and how can you win at this game of life? You need your manual. You wouldn't play a game without knowing the directions, the instructions, and of course, it's child friendly. And I saw my middle son who loves video games, like I saw those aha moments, those light bulb moments. And I also saw him identifying with some of the things that the boy was saying that he probably otherwise would not have said to me. So I love that, Kalila. Excellent. And it's very simple to do.
It's very simple, practical. You can start
Yeah.
tonight. You know,
Yeah,
so
right.
right away. Doesn't require any great.
Tomorrow, no.
No, I mean, mashallah, seriously, this idea of the build, Kalila, you said to, build that bond and something to do together. And I think that's one thing that's super important. 2 points that I wanted to make. Well, the first one was just something personal that I realized that I kept telling my kids, like, you're going to the sheikh, you're going to the sheikh. Um, you memorize Quran, and I was so proud of them when they were, in Quran competitions and they're winning and these different things, and I was so proud of it. And then they got a little bit older, and then finally, we had a conversation. It's like, well, you don't understand, Mom, what it's like to have to sama in front of the sheikh. And then it dawned on me,
Yeah.
I'm pushing them. I'm pushing them to go and recite to sama in front of the sheikh, and I'm not. You don't understand. So you know what I did Monday morning? Hey, can I come to your class?
Right.
And I will sama with my kids in front of them to let them see, hey, I'm struggling too. I'm afraid when I don't study too to go and recite. So then this actually became a thing where it's actually really funny, and like we'll go to the school, and like if it was a day that I didn't get a chance to memorize, or I didn't learn the ayats that I was supposed to memorize, like I'm hiding in the kitchen, like, see, now you know how it feels. So then it became this really big bonding moment for us, because we were like, okay, no, we're gonna sit down, we're gonna memorize, and then we will help quiz each other, and we'll do this so that we could actually do well and
Mhm.
help each other in that in this process of memorizing Quran. And then later on, it became like another thing where it was like, okay, it's really important that we know what's happening. So then we went to the tafsir, and then like we picked, I think it was like Asr Sola, especially during COVID, where we
Mhm.
would kind of go over, hey, what is this surah talking about? Why was it revealed? When did this happen? And it really humanizes everything that's happening. So that disconnect that our kids are having with Islam, which is that Islam feels like it's here somewhere, like over there.
Right.
It's not real for me. It's kind of bringing that disconnect uh, together. And then the other point that I wanted to make is I got this advice from a sister that I work with, and she said, even though we send our kids to Islamic school, sometimes we don't, but for those of us who do, it doesn't mean that that's it. Our kids and the Muslims need to be connected to a masjid.
Mm.
Yes, you can still do other things and other activities. However, you need to be connected to a masjid, to a house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and make that connection and make that be like your second home,
Mm.
and be involved and be active, because that is what will keep your kids involved. And then I thought back to myself, well, what did I do? Oh my God, my mom made sure that I was busy. I was volunteering at the masjid. I was doing this at the masjid. I was constantly doing something that involved my attention to be focused at the masjid. Even when I was old enough, hey, on this time and this time I can't work, guys, because I got to go to the masjid and help out with the little kids. And I think that those two things we're actively being Muslim. We need to actively be Muslim, as opposed to this very I'm not sure what the word I'm looking for is, like very passive way of being Muslim. Like we get on and we wearing the outfit of being a Muslim, but are we connecting that outfit to our actual spirituality? Are we making our kids understand that Islam is just not a physical dress, but it's something that we live and we breathe and we eat and we speak and we do every single moment of our lives?
Right. No, I agree. I 100% agree. I was going to say, I think for us, being African-American, Afro-Caribbean, and having grown up in Islam too, I think, alhamdulillah, it gives us an advantage that many people who may have reverted to Islam don't have. So, Naima, while you're saying it's important for our children to be connected to the house of Allah, I 100% agree with you. But I know that with that connection has to be a little bit nuanced, right? Because you want to know who your children are being connected to in the masjid. And I know for me, if I said that I was going to the masjid, my mother was like, okay, fine, you can go to the house of Allah. But little did she know that I was getting in trouble while I was going to the masjid. And my girlfriends and myself, we were off the hook. So it was like, okay, yeah, I'm connected to the masjid. Yeah, I'm connected to the Muslims. But these are some seedy Muslims, my present company included. So, also making a concerted effort to know who our children are around. And we've talked about this more than once, being selective and who our children are around, who they spend their time with. It's so important, because every Muslim is not doing the same things that you're doing.
Absolutely.
Right? So we have to be selective in that process. And not just saying, okay, this is the house of Allah, they're Muslim, everyone is good.
I agree 110%.
Yeah, but we're selective. I make no apologies for, no, you can't go to her house. Well, she can't go to anybody's house without mommy because she's sick. But you know what I mean? But at the same time, even when she's older, I have to know you. I have to know your mom. I have to know your dad. I have to know that your mom and your dad, they practice. Are they watching crazy things on television? Are they listening to crazy things on the radio? How do they fill their time? Right? And if it's not in line with what I'm trying to do with my child, no shame or judgment, but I'm raising her and I'm going to stand before Allah for how I'm raising her. And I have to take that seriously. So no, she won't be spending time with you unsupervised.
Absolutely. I think that's a beautiful point. We shouldn't feel bad about being selective either.
Right.
We don't have to be like, oh no, we can't, we don't have to let people know. Just be like, oh, okay, inshallah, next time. There's so many ways we can do it very tactfully and tastefully without it being awkward. But absolutely, I agree 110%.
Yeah, I was going to say also too, yeah, it's interesting because the ages that my children are now, I'm trying to see the importance of helping them to cultivate health.
Oh, you froze. Uh-oh.
Oh no.
Oh no. What happened? I believe what she was going to say is helping them to cultivate healthy relationships, teaching them, maybe instilling in them the ability to discern between who is someone that is good to befriend and who is someone that they should not be someone that they befriend. I believe that is what she was going to say. I'm not sure what's happening here.
Where did Kalila go?
Yeah, I know. I just realized that too. I wasn't looking at the screen. I was looking at the screen, but I was looking at the camera. Yeah, I'm not sure what happened. Let's see. Hold on. Just gonna message them. They should be coming back on. They should be coming back on soon. Yeah, they should be joining us soon. Okay. I think she is, I don't know. Okay. They should be coming back on soon, inshallah. But yeah, just going back over some more practical.
Okay.
There we go.
Okay. I'm like, what happened? I'm like, everyone leaves. Everyone leaves when I start talking.
You were
sorry.
The way we internalize.
Exactly. But I was just saying, as my kids get older, I'm starting to realize the importance of helping them to cultivate healthy relationships, because and we want that, because as our kids get older, they are going to spend less and less time with us. But they also don't necessarily know what qualities to look for in a friend. And as Zainab said, it's not only the friend, it's the household that they live in, it's their environment, so on and so forth. So I thought that was good. And the other point I wanted to make is that, talking about actionable steps, healthy alternatives. We don't want to be the no person, or Islam, stuff with a lot of, AKA no religion.
Right.
You can't do this, you can't do that, you can't do this. And for so many of us, sometimes, thinking back to my own childhood, that's what it felt like. Well, no, you can't do martial arts because it's mixed gender. Okay, well, if I can't do that, what can I do? But how is it fair that all the boys in the community are doing this activity and the girls aren't? So I think it's all these little things, starting from our households, starting with our communities,
Right.
is that you can't take something away without giving like a healthy replacement. So I would definitely say that is of utmost importance.
Quaisia, it's so important that you're mentioning that, because Rasulullah ﷺ never took something away, never forbid something without giving a permissible alternative.
SubhanAllah.
Right? And this is a part of Islam that we oftentimes miss. And it did feel like growing up that it was like Islam was the way of life for no. Like,
yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Looking for a no?
It was going to take you to hell.
Yeah.
And
No, we're here.
Students, they're like, well, if I'm going to hell, might as well. And I'm like, no.
Right.
Come on.
Right.
And that's or the whole aspect, and this is another thing, when it comes to children, those of us who have, boys and girls, or just, they're all going to be a mixed company. When I was talking about, the no, or it's yes if you're a boy, but not if you're a girl,
right.
And that kind of leaves a damper on a lot of women. And we see, if we look at some of the girls or women we grew up with, or even in our communities, and astaghfirullah, you should never leave the religion or anything like that, but it's always this aspect of, this deep-rooted unfairness, or, this is imbalanced, or so on and so forth. So it really, I can't emphasize this point enough. I would say, and sometimes parents overlook that when they have boys and girls, but your son, it goes back to the hypocrisy. Your son is allowed to do certain things, or you turn a blind eye, but your daughter, oh no.
The boys get away with a lot. I think it also goes back to
and that leaves a real damper. Okay,
a lot of people again goes back to culture. Like again, when your culture starts to slip into the deen, I think a lot of it is cultural. Again, the boys can go out there, sow their wild oats, so to speak, have girlfriends, do this and that, and the girls can barely leave the house.
Yep.
The boys out there, probably a whole girlfriend somewhere in the other side of town, and the girl.
You want to go to a halakha? It's after 6. I don't know.
Exactly. He's out in the street, and the girl has to be in by sundown. Like, wait a second. If that should be applicable to all of us.
Right.
If I have to be in by Maghrib or sundown, he needs to be in by Maghrib or sundown. This is not even boring enough. So I think as parents, we have to be mindful of that and be very careful of that. The boys shouldn't be out late and hang out in the street any more than the daughters should. It should be both of you.
Because what it does is it creates a schism. It creates a schism in our kids, and they're just like, "Well, wait a minute, he can do whatever."
Exactly.
But my daughter can't do anything.
Exactly.
And we're doing a disservice to our boys as well, because we're not raising them to be righteous.
Exactly.
We're not
Absolutely.
raising them to be righteous or accountable or responsible. And then we wonder why we have these men that are in a state of arrested development.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
Never tasked with the responsibility of being morally sound.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Exactly. I know growing up, we didn't have that. Like we only had the one brother, but whatever was applicable to us was the same thing. He didn't
That's how it needs to
expect
be.
differently because he was a boy. He did not hang out in the street. He was not outside hanging out, and he wasn't looking and talking, hanging with girls, and my parents also instilled in him to make sure that when you step outside the house, you represent Islam as well. Yes, we know we have to cover a certain way, but guess what? He always had a sweater on or something that made him look different from the average boy that was out there. Something that differentiated him.
Absolutely.
I think that's another important thing we need to keep in mind for our boys in particular. He should look different from the rest of the boys. Something. Even I'm saying it's wear a turban every time he goes out of the house, but he should have something that looks different and distinguish him from the Cracker Boys. Something.
I agree with you, Kalila, because going back to Naima's point when she said, and I think for a lot of us, for women, and that's why things are a blessing as you get older. You're wearing this hijab, you're representative of Islam. You're going out in the world knowing that. But when you when these young men are going out in the world, or they're going to public schools, or they're going to in all these spaces, and they have nothing to identify them. Sometimes it really is doing them a disservice. Yeah,
it is.
And we wonder why we see some of our brothers, that are really, really struggling in adulthood.
Absolutely. And this is what we have to pick from the pool. We're coming down and trying to get ready to get married.
Next topic, no discussion, right? We need a whole show on that.
Right?
We do.
We need to see how it's all connected. Like,
it
is.
It is, yeah.
Are those of us with sons raising our sons to be respectful, good Muslims for the Muslim female population that's out there?
Exactly.
Are we doing that? And then we kind of why is it that Muslim men want to go, and seek out, non-Muslim women? Well, it might just be easier because he was off in La La Land.
Exactly. That's what he's used to. That's what he's used to. That's what he knows.
One of the things that we do is that we teach our daughters that that interaction with boys on any level is 100% impermissible.
Exactly. Yeah, right.
100% lead to zina. Rather than, because what we're doing is we're teaching them, again, no, but we're not teaching them how, right? We live in America. We don't live in an Islamic society. And even in Islamic societies, they go to extremes in the separation of the sexes. Something that Rasulullah ﷺ did not do. When it was time, when the masajids during the time of Rasulullah, it was in one room. The men were in the front, the women were behind them.
Exactly.
Able to see the men.
We weren't upstairs or in the basement.
Right. We weren't upstairs. We weren't the people under the stairs. Like we were in the musalla together. We're not teaching our children how to interact with the opposite sex. And when they get out there, and I've seen this firsthand from my own peers, when they do get out into the dunya, when they do get out into the world, it's like they don't know how to interact with the opposite sex. So they go to the extreme in their interaction with the opposite sex.
It's like the preacher's daughter. The preacher's daughter, she can get wild.
We're not teaching our kids. Okay. Go ahead, Naima.
I'm so sorry. This also goes back to how we're raising our men. And so what I think also, just from my students and different things, opportunities I've had to talk with people, it's like, well, what's your interaction like with your father? And so a lot of people don't realize, even though your father can physically be in a household and you have a 2-parent household, he can still be mentally and emotionally absent. Yep. And your daughter can still be seeking that type of fatherly figure or that type of fatherly love. Yeah. So what happens is that when they are out and they do leave and they do go for college, now any male that shows them attention it's like, oh my, oh my God, you're finally getting that male attention that
Right.
as a child or as a young girl you're seeking. And subhanAllah, people don't realize how having a structured household with positive male influence is super important. And
Absolutely.
I'm not saying this is like an against anybody or any kind of household. I'm just saying this in the sense that, subhanAllah, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in terms of like community and representation and people being there to help and to assist how our families and our households should be. It's so important that we are following these guidelines for the
Correct.
simple fact that our daughters will seek it out. I have witnessed 2-parent households like where the father is mentally and emotionally absent, and you have daughters that are seeking attention from males elsewhere. If you've ever seen girls who, like, there are some girls that are, for lack of a better word, always thirsty. Like, they're thirsty. Like, they're always this boy that, and he's over there, and like all these other things. And then you see the girl the same age, and she's like, oh, okay, boy, whatever. We should look deeper. It's like, not that this girl is fast, not that this other girl is promiscuous. It's not that she's developing more, that she is, has more, she's menstruating or she's not menstruating. A lot of it has to do with the psychological aspect of parenting and how males, one, are being raised, two, how they're interacting with women and their connection with their daughters. It's not just wives too. It's also their daughters and their female relatives.
No, I think it makes some I think a lot of excellent points. Just for the sake of time, I think we should try to open it up for some questions and answers. Oh, actually, no. What are we supposed to be doing? Ha ha ha! Quote of the day. Yeah. Do you want to go ahead and start off with that quote of the day?
Sure. One moment.
Or is it question? Girl, I don't know.
Hold on. You know what? I cannot. I'm having some internet. Would someone else mind reading the quote of the day?
Sure. Kalila, did you want to go?
Okay. Our quote of the day is, "It is not what you do for your children, but what you have taught them to do for themselves that will make them successful human beings." And that is a quote from actually Ann Landers.
Excellent point. Excellent quote. I think it's so important that we are teaching our children autonomy, right? Teaching them, like, one of the du'as that I make for myself on a regular basis is the ability to discern. Allah give me the ability to discern what's good for me, what is not good for me, ultimately by His guidance, but instill that in me and then instill that in my child.
Yeah.
Right, it's so important for us to do that because as one of you, I can't remember who, one of you mentioned that eventually our children they're not going to be around us as much.
True.
Yeah. And we want them to know, right from wrong on their own, so that when they're tested with these decisions or with these trials, they know and choose to make the right decision.
Absolutely. Zainab, I'm so sorry. To piggyback off of what you said about dua, another dua is, when you're making dua, oh Allah, please bring me good companions, like good companionship, and bring them to me easily and remove bad companions from me easily. That's really important because sometimes we're around a lot of people, you have a lot of friends, and not all of them are necessarily good for us. So that is also another dua, asking Allah to bring good people to us and remove bad people from us easily.
That's a dua we should be doing as adults.
Yeah, for our children as well as for ourselves, because we know, especially with children, their companions, their friends are really everything to them.
Absolutely.
Especially as they get older, get into like the high school years and middle school years, their circle, their peers, they're heavily influenced by. And that's like their whole world. So I think that dua definitely, not only just for ourselves, but for our children, is definitely something we should be doing. Making sure that they're around the right people, the right Muslims, have the right companions who are going to be there to remind them of Allah and His message, to correct them if they do something wrong.
Right.
That's so important.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And one last advice I would like to give parents is to be able to laugh with your kids and at yourself. I think
Yeah.
that also helps too. And saying I'm sorry if you did do something that was offensive or wrong to them, because they
Mhm.
have rights over us as well,
Right.
and we're not perfect.
I think that that's such an important point, Naima. The power of apologizing,
Yes.
right? And not apologizing in a space from of superiority, like I'm better than you, like I'm wrong. Can you forgive me? Mommy made a mistake. Can you forgive me? Right? Like letting them know that their forgiveness is important. Right? Like their
Yeah.
forgiveness, how you see us is important. Like if I yelled at you and what you did did not necessarily warrant that, hey, I wanted to talk to you about that. I didn't like what you did, but I could have handled it differently.
Absolutely.
Forgive me.
Yeah.
Mommy was having a difficult day and you got the brunt of that. Can you forgive me?
Yeah.
Like coming back to the table to show them our humanity. Wallahi, there's nothing more I think there's nothing better that my mother taught us, that she imparted on us, greater than her humanity.
Mm.
Wallahi, and I make dua that I am able to impart that level of humanity onto my daughter.
Mm.
Because I feel like she showed us so much of who she is by always coming back when she made a mistake and apologizing to us. And it didn't break us, right? Like it just let me know that she's human too.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
her humanity, like it was everything. It was everything for me. And I hope that it is for my daughter and our children. Like mommy's human. She makes a mistake. Like mommy's tired. She gets irritable. Yeah. Just like me. Hi, kitty,
Right.
kitty.
Giving
I wanted to mention something also too earlier in the show. We talked about our identity. We have two identities. We're Muslim women, but we're also, African American, African Caribbean. And another thing that I've caught myself doing, and as you were talking, Zainab, I was like, well, I have to do better, is that these scripts we have in our heads that we kind of just say like on autopilot. So an example will be, you can't do that errand for me. You can't put that cup in the sink. When I feed you, when I do this, when I buy your clothes, and it's like, if your husband was saying that to you, how would it, which some husbands do, how would it make you feel? No, Allah has given you the ability to do that, and that is something that one of your obligations, and alhamdulillah, you're able to do that. And we, once again, going back, it's like almost, and it's because they're children, they're not human, like with the same human emotions that we have.
Correct.
Because we know how we would feel if we were constantly being told that, being reminded of what someone else in a higher position is doing for us. So even as we're having this conversation, how can I reword things? We help each other, or sometimes we need help, or alhamdulillah, Allah has, once again, because we're trying to bring Allah into it, Allah has allowed me to feed you and clothe you and so on and so forth. So just really the power of words and how they can really make or
Quincy,
break a
that is
person,
amazing.
honestly.
No, mashallah, seriously, Quincy, that is something that Caribbean parents do all the time. I did this for you. I did that for you. You're supposed to.
Right? And then it's, well, when I'm 18, you won't have to. Like, we know how this is like a storyline,
Yeah,
I can't wait to get out of your house.
right. And then we wonder why we push our children away, because we're constantly I did this, and you're so right. We need to bring it back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We need to be thankful to our older children that help, that do pull weight for us, because they're pulling weight for us.
Yeah, they are.
Naima, that's such an important point. But also, I think, and this is probably another conversation for another day, I think that we overburden our older children too. We task them with the responsibility of being a parent when they are still developing themselves. And that's unfair to our kids. And I know that that's not what you're speaking to. I know that that's not what you're speaking to.
Specifically daughters. So we can, specifically, if you're a girl and you're adult,
we do this so much to our children. And what ends up happening is that they resent us, and they resent their siblings.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's nothing wrong with teaching them how to be a family, but there is a fine line between parentalizing our children and teaching them to be a cooperative team player within a family unit.
Mhm.
And I think that
Absolutely.
oftentimes those lines are blurred within so many families because we're exhausted ourselves.
Well, I would love for this to be another topic. I think in that aspect, we took the negative of both. We took the negative of, an American culture and we're overburdened. We don't have a support system. Then we took the negative of some other ethnic groups' culture of the girl is supposed to do everything in the house, and she's like,
Mhm.
this is
Mhm.
preparing her
Sharing
for
her for life,
wifedom
yep.
and
Mhm.
all these other things. So this is why she has to wash the clothes and do all these chores, and her brother is exempt. So in this respect, and I going to
So we need a
Islamic
part
schools,
two then.
it really saddened me,
Yeah,
and I
I
definitely
agree.
saw it with a lot of my peers that they were 14 and basically running households, and the boys were just sitting back playing video games and having a good time.
And it's still
Right.
happening.
So I would
Okay,
love
so
to
we
explore
definitely need a
this.
part
This is
two.
definitely
Good idea.
We need a
Say
yeah.
that
part
again,
two.
Naima.
No, I was just saying we definitely need a part two. Like,
Yeah.
because I really think that we do really need to touch on that. Those two, they're one and the same, but they're two very separate topics. And I agree, we should talk about that aspect and the structure of households, and us really just sometimes burdening our children with responsibilities, and really taking from a place of authority. Oh, it's oppression. We're telling them that this is their job as a child,
Yeah.
and you're
Right.
taking this because
Right.
I do that. I provide for you, but it's our
Mhm.
jobs to provide for them.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And then
SubhanAllah.
even too, Naima, but we also want to teach them gratitude too, right? So
Absolutely.
how do we
Balance that.
that
Yeah.
balance, right? Because I think what you're saying is so true, but at the same time, we do want to kind of teach them gratitude, right?
And responsibility.
Yeah, and responsibility as well.
Their ability to do chores. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like mommy's not going to do everything for you. Daddy is not
Right,
going to do
exactly.
everything for you. How do you navigate that? And I think that it is an interesting balance. It really, really
For
is.
me, I
And
would
it's
say
hard.
the short answer would be it goes back to how we word it. Really the power of words. So like we were saying earlier, I do X, Y, and Z for you, you can't do this, versus our humanity, mommy's tired. Mommy really needs some help right now,
Right.
That does
and
make
just on a
sense.
psychological level,
Right.
it's kind of empowering the person. It's almost like
You
they
need
feel they
me.
have a choice, exactly, when they might not. But it's like, oh, I
Exactly.
really need some help right now. Do you think you can figure this out for me?
Right.
Sure, mom, I can do it.
Right.
No,
Right.
I
Yeah.
definitely, Kwesi, you're 110% right. I definitely say to my kids, especially when I was like had a lot of things on my plate with work and school and everything, I would just be like, guys, I really need your help. And like, I really need you to help me season the meat. I really need you to help me do laundry. Like, I really need your help. And
Right.
it was the truth. I really need your help.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, Naima and Kwaisia, what you both speak to, you know there's an ayah in the Quran where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, who will give Allah a goodly loan, right?
Mm.
And it's like Allah is asking you for you to give something when we know Allah doesn't need us, right?
Mm.
And I think like when that's
SubhanAllah.
worded that way, it's like, wow, like you need a loan from me? And that's how our kids see us. I mean,
MashaAllah.
nothing like Allah, but it's just like that's how our kids see us. Like when you need me, mommy?
Yeah.
Like when we read the Quran, like Allah needed a loan from us? No, of course not. Never. But he words it in such a way that empowers us and encourages us to give. Right. And I think, like you said, Kwaisia and Naima both, like wording it that way, like empowering them, making them feel needed, wanted, and belonging, right? Like for these are all things that we need as human beings. Like we're letting them know you matter too. Your opinion matters too. The work that you put into our family unit matters too.
Yes.
I think that those are such good points. A lot of people in the chat, I don't know if you guys can see, but they're asking for a part two. So
wow.
they are asking for a part two to this conversation. So maybe we'll do a part two to this next week, inshallah. Let's just quickly go to the comments. We are reading the comments in advance. If they are not applicable to today's topic, we will not be reading them. And if you have any questions, please feel free to inbox us. Inshallah, we'll be more than happy to answer any questions that are unrelated to the topic, inshallah. So Dr. Aliyah, assalamu alaikum. She says, assalamu alaikum, my dear heart. Oh, I love her. Shukran for all your sincere efforts and lovely advice. May Allah bless us all with afiyah. Allahumma ameen. 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 She also mentions living in your authentic selves. Alhamdulillah. Sister Naomi. Hey, Naomi. She said, that's Naima's big sister. She says, is the challenge really that child? Is the challenge really the child, or is it easier for us as adults to just let them have their own? Very true. Because it's less work for us as parents to just let it go instead of taking time out to explain. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And many of us, and it's hard for us to admit, we're parenting from a deficit. We struggle with love, belonging, worth, right? And when our child is not pleased with us, we attribute that to a lack of worthiness. Right? Many of us, I've seen it from so many parents. I don't want to disappoint my child. I don't want to tell them no. I don't want to confront something inappropriate that they're doing out of fear of losing their love. And this is a very dangerous place to parent. And our children pick up on that.
Absolutely.
They're master manipulators, unintentional, malicious, right? There's no manipulation doesn't have to imply malice. But they know how to manipulate, and they know how to pull at our heartstrings. They're so I think that this is a good point. Anybody else want to comment on Naomi's point?
I definitely think too, like when you said, Zainab, especially when the child is living in a non-traditional environment. So it might be coming from definitely when you're dealing with parental guilt and things like that. And we all see, parents who buy their children overly expensive equipment or overly expensive clothes. You kind of wondering, are they doing this for the child, or sometimes are they doing it because it's to fulfill, but it's a very surface. You're not, I guess I would say fulfilling the need or that child's need in a and I guess a stronger foundational way. So I would definitely agree with her, and that's why it's so important for us. Well, I think this is what we're doing today, but just shedding light to it, bringing awareness to it. Because we, as parents, we will leak that onto our children, even if we have the best of intentions. Yeah.
Anyone else want to chime in before we go on? If not, we can go on.
Okay.
So Naomi also mentions, I remember my mother asking us, why are you making speed like that?
Yes, right?
Yes.
My parents and my mom said the same thing.
Are you exercising?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. What are you doing?
I was in trouble for that, yes.
Right. And you would go back and pray. You go back and do it.
Yeah, you know how kids are. The splash of water.
There you go. Right. So Zuleika said, right, they have to experience healthy relationships first within their households. Absolutely. Sister Kelly mentioned salams. My family is non-Muslim and my siblings aren't very religious, but we all get along. I'm just getting nervous as my kids are getting older. I nursed my nieces to make them mahram, LOL. Meaning that she breastfed her children, her nieces, in order to make them mahram for her, in order to make them, I guess, to enable them to be around her sons. I would imagine that's what she's referring to. Yeah,
I think so.
Yeah. I mean, it is scary as our children get older, right? And we know their struggles. Like all of our children have things that are struggles for them. Maybe it's music, maybe it's boys, maybe it's TV, maybe it's video, whatever it is. We know our children, and we know that these struggles, if not honed in or channeled in a halal way, can really, go left. Yeah. So
well, as somebody, and I think a lot. Well, I know I can speak for myself. my close-knit family obviously is Muslim, but like many African Americans, I have a large family that's not Muslim.
Mhm.
But one of the things that helped me is that because kids are going to see, well, why does such and such do this? Or why do they dress like that? Or why do they, Mommy, I thought you said alcohol was haram. Like, so,
Mhm.
and to try to, or even within the Muslim community, because sometimes there's people who, do things un-Islamic, to really differentiate the person and the behavior, I think is so important for them.
Right.
So we still love Uncle such and such, but no, we don't like what he does because Allah doesn't like it.
Right.
So I would still go back to the wording, but what we don't want to do, and this is not for her in particular, but just for all, for myself first and foremost, is to like vilify people. Well, this is such a bad person. Because when I was growing up, it was just like the kuffar, and all the kuffar are just like, you don't even go within 3 inches of them almost sometimes, and it's just like, So yeah, that would be my advice, is to focus on, you love your family. We love all our family. As Muslims, we don't sever ties, but there's certain behaviors that we don't like, and we're going to make dua for them.
But then, Chrissy, I have another question about that, though.
Yeah.
It brings up something else. And then we all can kind of chime in on this, but then how do we, we're distinguishing the behavior from our love or disdain for the person, but then how do we let them know that because of the behavior, we have to minimize our interaction with them, right? Because we have a responsibility for the wala and the bara, the loyalty versus the disloyalty, the association versus disassociation as well. This is a principle in Islam. So how do we as parents navigate that? And this is a question for all of us.
That's a good point.
I would say, so I can go first with that. And it's still a learning curve. Is first you leave it to almost to the other person to make the decision. So these are my boundaries. Okay, we don't do this. We don't listen to music. We don't whatever. And these are the conditions.
Right.
So you're deciding, or you're not deciding, because you might want to come around with alcohol. So you've made the decision that you can't come around almost, So I would say that would be my 2 cents. These are we love you, but these are the conditions. These are my boundaries, and we have to stick to these boundaries. Once again, it's nothing personal. And then that person decides, by their behavior and actions. Yeah.
I think that's a good idea. Yeah, I think as Muslims, again, those of us who have non-Muslim relatives, especially, I think that's what we need to do. Yeah, have that conversation with your family. Explain to them what your boundaries are. These are my beliefs. This is what we are allowed to do. This is what we're not allowed to do. This is what we're allowed to be around. This is what we're not allowed to be around. I don't want my children around it also. So again, you can still go to the family cookout or whatever they're inviting you to. And again, since you've already had that conversation ahead of time, hopefully, depending on the family, because every family is different, they'll respect that and not, bust out the cores of the Corona while you're there. Of course. Because we all have that Uncle So-and-so who likes to, but if they do, because at the end of the day they're not Muslim and they're gonna do what they want to do. I want a beer. I'm gonna have a beer. It's my right. Then you just politely excuse yourself. Okay, well, it's been nice. It's good seeing everybody. We're gonna go now.
Yeah.
That's what I would advise.
You guys make some really great points for me, and with our situation, because once again, we all, we have that experience of having many Muslims in our family and having many non-Muslims in our family. And I mean, I have a cousin that like he smells like alcohol from just how much he drinks. Like it's his sweat. To be really honest,
it comes out in his pores.
Yeah, it happens. Yeah, it comes out in the pores after a while.
Like, he always says, I do want to convert to Islam. He's like, but the hardest thing would be to give up alcohol. And so subhanAllah, and he's really sincere and he loves everything about the religion, but that is, and may Allah bring him to Islam. That is his struggle. And so subhanAllah, so I would say, I have open conversations, especially now that my girls are older. I'm like, hey guys, listen, this is what it is. Some of our families are actively Muslim. Some of them are Muslim and that are not active. And then we just straight up have family members that are just not Muslim. And alhamdulillah, we have this conversation and we do have these gatherings. And I will say that with what Tracy has said, a lot of times we do give boundaries. And it's really interesting. Over the years, I think my family in particular has gotten better. So they'll have, they will specifically go out and get halal meat can I get it from, and like they'll call and they'll show, I'm gonna get this halal meat. Or if they're insisting on cooking a certain type of dish, they will have it on another table. And they're like, oh, it's kind of the same thing with vegetarians. So they're like, we won't cook it with the same pot or the same spoon. We will cook it like as if, because if we had family members that were Rastafarian or something, they wouldn't be eating any meat.
Right.
So they understand that concept. So you can respect this concept of us with, with Islam. Even with desserts, certain Caribbean desserts have rum in them. So they'll be like, okay, this is the vegetarian / halal table, and this is not. So I think boundaries and open conversation and dialogue is really important, because it allows both parties to come to an agreement of, hey, this is how we're going to do that. And if not, just like what Kalila said, okay, we always have the option to say, hey, I love you. Inshallah, I'll see you later.
Yep, time to go. It's time to go. Yeah.
You know, Naima, I had a, because we can go in so many, like this discussion is just so interesting. I'm just thinking of so many topics, and even this topic, and I don't really have the answers, but what if you do have family who is maybe not Muslim or whatever, and they have their vices, so on and so forth? Because what I see in the African American community is that a lot of us, when our parents became Muslim or first generation Muslim, we distance ourselves so much from our non-Muslim families. And I honestly do think that that is very counterproductive to so many things that we want to do. And I think about something Shadid Muhammad said that was so profound. You know, you're a Muslim sister, for example, you're a convert, and okay, your father, who you grew up with, who knows you your whole life, yes, he's not Muslim, but does that mean he cannot play a role at all in your marital process?
Right.
You know, so sometimes I think we just think so black and white. You either do X, Y, and Z, or it can't have anything to do with you. Or, okay, you're non-Muslim, yes, but there's also some good qualities that you still, I guess, do have. But this is just something that I see us as first generation, as converts, as whatever, really fall into. And to me, it also is detrimental to us and our children.
I agree. I agree. I think a lot of us, our parents went to that extreme in the early days when they first accepted Islam. I know, speaking for myself, I think my parents did that for sure.
You don't even know half your cousins and everything else, you know.
Yeah, so you know, every summer, one of my aunts, she would have, you know, every 4th of July, she would have, you know, a barbecue, a cookout at her house. And mind you, she lived maybe 10 minutes from where we live.
Wow.
And we never went. My parents, I remember, would go, and they was like, we're just gonna stop over for a few minutes just to say hi, just to make an appearance, that kind of thing, you know. They never took us. We never went in all my childhood growing up. And she would have this every 4th of July, so it was an annual thing. We never went.
Right.
You know, why? You know, why is that? You know, and so I didn't even really get to know her until I was an adult.
Now, did you ever ask your parents why?
You know something? I never did. I remember something just now because what Chrissy was saying, and I'm like, oh my God. And I actually never had that conversation with them. I never have. But again, I know, speaking from experience, a lot of our parents did go to those extremes in the early days of Islam. Okay, now we're not going to just go not several times, not go around that whole, or not have the children, you guys go around that all. Why? Like, this is your blood sister. You grew up in the same household. Like, all that shit,
out
the window. Like, so we're not allowed to have, you know, like, come on. Like, this is not a stranger or some, this is blood. Like, first sister, you know, siblings, you know. So, you know, I know they had the best of intentions, but sometimes, you know, they may have missed the mark a bit, you know.
Yeah.
No, Kalila, I think that this is why that dialogue between, and I was actually commenting on someone's post about this, that dialogue between the convert revert and the born Muslim is so important, because our parents were converts or first generation Muslims, and they didn't have that context that we have, right? Like, so their thing was, I'm going to shelter you from everything so that you don't get into it, right?
Exactly.
So that this doesn't become alluring to you.
Exactly.
Of course, in many cases, it had the opposite effect, right? Like, we were so hyper curious about these things that we sought it out on our own, and we did it in ways that were not halal, many of us, right? And I feel like because our convert or revert brothers and sisters, they don't have this frame of reference of growing up in Islam and understanding what it means to be an American Muslim, right? They shelter their children from so much as our parents did with us, that their children are crippled when they have to go out into society. They don't know how to function. They don't know how to interact with non-Muslims. And newsflash, most of the people that live here are not Muslim. So we are going to have to interact with them.
And Zainab, just to add to that, because we're definitely going to have to do part 2. And to add
Yeah,
to that,
sure.
Zainab, like you said, generational Muslims. And I think a lot of it has to do with being Muslim American is very different. Even
Yes,
if
it
you
is.
come from generations, from the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, generations of Muslims, and you're coming to this country, what you are faced with and bombarded with is completely different. So if you're coming here as an adult, and then you're raising a child here, you're like, but I never did that. You weren't exposed to it. You didn't have an option. You didn't have all of these media telling you this and telling you that and all these other things in your face. So of course your child is going to feel different and exposed to all of these other things. And then once again, exactly what you said, you're hyper sheltering them so that they have no idea how to respond. And then they go to college, and they act crazy.
Yeah, they go buck wild because we've never given context for what they're seeing all around them, right? We're not contextualizing what they're seeing. We're not telling them that it's right or wrong. We're just sheltering them. They can't do anything. We don't explain anything. And then it's like now they're left to draw their own conclusions. And this is so dangerous.
Yeah, it can be.
I remember I was explaining to Leanne, like we were talking about music. And we had an hour conversation about music, right? And breaking it down. Why is it displeasing to Allah? What does it do? What type of attachments form in your heart when you listen to these types of things, right? What does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala call music? What is this and what is that? And then I explained to her that with all of that may still be a trial for you because it's alluring, right? It's nice to bump Biggie. No offense, I'm a Brooklyn girl, so right? You know what I mean? Like, and I'm not saying it's permissible, of course not. But I am saying that these things, Shaitan has made the things that are impermissible alluring to you.
Yes.
So you may still struggle with that, even with that understanding.
Yep.
But it's like we just kind of leave them to navigate this. It's so clear.
It really is. And I think for our parents, again, us children of reverts, I think for them, the thinking probably was, again, to err on the side of caution. So again, since they didn't have that point of reference, not growing up in Islam, in the West, in the United States, I think for them it was just like, okay, we'll just go to the other thing. I'd rather err on the side of caution than to maybe be a little too loose with it and possibly have my child fall into something that they shouldn't be involved in. I kind of think that's probably what the thinking was, in terms of why they went to such extremes in terms of relations with the non-Muslim relatives.
Right. I do want to move on only because, not Kelly, we are like way over. We're way over. So Naomi said, that's exactly why I wilded out. See? No, you're going to hell. She's like, so if I'm going to hell, I might as well have a good reason to go. Why yadu billah? And I know, and I understand that thought process. Go ahead, Naima.
No, I was just saying, thinking back, because yes, that's my sister. But yeah, like if you're told you're going to hell, you might as well have a good time. Like,
Right. Because we have to, like, in instilling a love of Allah for them, we also have to teach them, you should love Allah, but you should also fear Him, right? Like that balance. Like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is Ghafur Rahim, but He is Shadid al-Iqab. Like He is severe in reckoning, right? And that is from His mercy too. So it's like we are teaching our children, to love Allah, to understand who He is and all of these things. But I also want you to revere Him, to fear Him, so that you have that respect. The same way we want our children to have that respect for us.
Yes,
right. Like you should be shy in front of Allah.
And it goes into that mentality of not do as I say,
right?
Not as I do. If we were to see, we need to see the examples. We need to have open dialogue. We need to talk to our kids openly and plainly and candidly about Islam. I know girls whose parents still have not talked to them about a period. They just put a pad on their bed. They
Right.
don't know that they're supposed to shave. They don't know a lot of
Absolutely.
things about
Right.
themselves or about their
Right.
bodies. Why are
Right.
we not having these conversations when the
Conversation.
Sahaba would go to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and show them pieces of cloth with blood
Right.
and say,
With the blood on
"Can I
it.
make salah now?"
Right.
Why are we so shy to the point
Very, yeah, a lot of parents don't do
to
that.
Islam?
Right.
When in secrecy there's so many other things that you're exposed to on the internet. So you'll let your kids watch rated R movies, but we can't have a conversation about sex education.
Right.
Mhm.
Right. Very true.
So too, I think in part 2, maybe we can go into that a little deeper and go into
Yes,
that a little more.
definitely.
Because that's something that comes up a lot. And then my daughter, again, she's in high school, she's got friends, and that's something they talk about a lot. Oh, I can't talk about that to my mom. Well, I can never say that to my mom. Or we can never. She's like, she's very strange because we have such an open relationship, and she not talk about everything. Nothing is off the table. So for her, it's such a sparring concept. Like, I don't understand, mom. Like, why they say keep saying why they can't talk to your mom about these things, but you and I we talk about all these things. That's like, yeah, that's true, but unfortunately, not everybody has that relationship with their mom.
True.
So that's definitely, I think, something that needs to be addressed, and maybe we could talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Zuleika mentioned, and then the boy, I guess in reference to the importance of cultivating both our daughters and our sons. And then the boy who has been in the street and has several baby mamas back to the virgin girls to fix and marry. Absolutely.
That
Then
is so true.
That
is so true. The
Absolutely.
person wanting the girl to be a virgin, but half the time the boys aren't.
Right.
I'll probably say more than half the time the boys aren't. What about them?
Right.
So,
Ameen. So Sister Sana says, I would love for this topic to be discussed further. Sibling rivalry and explaining to kids why chores differ based on their age rather than gender. That's a good point. I think that would be something that we can explore. Sister Sanan, I think, Kwesi, you answered this as well. What about families? I think we all kind of touched on this. What about families who do things on purpose just in spite, right? I think that the technique that Kwesi mentioned is so important, like kind of putting the responsibility back on them. My boundaries are clear. Now, what do you want to do? Mm-hmm. Right. And I think even in psychology, like that is what you do. Like you kind of put that lens back on them. Right. And I think that that's really important for us to do with our families as well. Sister Alida mentioned that in the Quran and Hadith, it states that we are to maintain the kinship ties, even with your non-Muslim family, removing yourself only if they try to prevent you from obeying Allah. Absolutely. I think you make a really good point, but I think the how we do that is just as important as understanding that ayah. And going back to how Rasulullah he did that. Like during the Heart series, we talked about the Prophet's year of sorrow when he had lost his non-Muslim uncle. Right? This was a hurt. This was like a father figure to him. So he never severed ties with him. But what did that relationship look like? How did they interact with each other? Even though his uncle was a disbeliever, what was the interaction like? And I think that it's important for us to know how they interact so that we can model that interaction. I think that's it. Yay! Okay. Very good. Alhamdulillah. So I think this is a great place to close. I did just want to reiterate that Kwesia's workshop, MWI's workshop that is facilitated by Kwesia is coming up next weekend. Tomorrow is the very last day to purchase your tickets at the Early Bird Special of $97. The link is just go to wholeheartedmuslim.com. We will go ahead and post that link. Please support. We are so excited about this workshop and everything that we're doing. Continue to support us. Continue to make dua for us. And any final words, ladies, before we close out?
No, inshallah.
Yeah, so I would say for the workshop, even if, and I think someone said this, even if it's not you per se, who's a special needs mom or a special needs parent, maybe just forward it to somebody who is, because oftentimes, unfortunately, the people who need the stuff the most are often the last to reach out or say that they need it or even acknowledge that they need it sometimes. So they sometimes need that gentle nudge or push. So definitely, as Zainab said, spread the word, inshallah.
I have a question for you, Kwesia. Now, what if you're a parent and you feel that you need
Can't hear. Sorry, what?
Oh, I was saying, as a parent, what if you're a parent and you feel that you need this, even though your child may not be a special needs child? How would it still be appropriate to still come and attend the class?
Sorry, so I don't know if it's my volume, but basically, are you saying if you're not a special needs family, can you still attend a workshop?
Yes.
I would say, and this is so interesting, I would say my short answer is no. And yes. My short answer is yes. And I'm going to tell you why. Because labels are good, but they're bad. We need labels to define certain things, so on and so forth. But at the end of the day, there's so many nuances. So you might basically not have a child who's diagnosed, but you're dealing with depression and you can't figure out why. Or your children are climbing up the walls and you feed them sugary cereal every day. So I want to do justice. Basically, the special needs families have reached a point where they can no longer ignore the problem. I'll just put it to you like that.
Right.
But if you're feeling that something's wrong, if you're feeling that things are imbalanced, if you're feeling some of these emotions that we talked about, anger, resentment, guilt, can't really pinpoint why, then I would say, why not? What do you have to lose? It's almost like, and I know they're different, but when we say Black Lives Matter, we mean all lives matter. So because special needs families are so ignored, when you are bringing attention to some of the needs that special needs families have, they're really needs that all families have, honestly.
Absolutely. Christia, this reminds me of a conversation that we had about all children benefiting from related services.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All children can benefit from related services, whether it's speech, occupational therapy, physical therapy. And they may not necessarily have something where they're diagnosed.
Exactly.
Official diagnosis, but they may be struggling in certain things where they can benefit. So
exactly.
As you said, I think it's so important. Like, it's so funny. Like, you can't ignore the problem any longer, but they're struggling, and we may need support in identifying the problem.
That's true. No, I know I could have benefited probably from Quincy's course when my daughter was young. Because she's she's been diagnosed. She's not a special needs child, but she had a lot of sensory issues. A lot of sensory issues. How many last she managed to overcome them? Most of them. But she did have a lot of sensory issues, and she was a very picky eater. I remember I literally was running out of ideas of what things to feed her because I didn't know what to do. There was unfamiliar territory with me. I was kind of away at everything. So I didn't know how to handle a child who was so picky. And again, she always was very small for her age, always very low, and in terms of weight and size. So I'm like, oh my god! Like next thing you know, I was scared. Like, oh god, this child's gonna starve to death because she doesn't like anything, and I don't know what to do. So I know I probably as a parent, I remember being very frustrated and lost and trying to figure out how to navigate that and what am I going to, how I'm going to handle this. So I think that anybody who's in a situation, maybe something like that, could definitely benefit from this.
No, thank you, because I think that was a question that maybe some people, because I'm sorry, watching the video and hearing you and hearing everything that you had to say, I was like, wait a minute, I want to attend this class because sometimes I feel guilty. Maybe I need to release some emotional pain from parenting. So I was just listening to that and I said, you know what? I think that other parents should understand, yes, it is specific for families that do have special needs. However, all children, they might be on different levels, different spectrums. And sometimes this is something that everybody faces. So thank you for answering that.
Absolutely.
And a lot of times too, and I know we're being long-winded today, but sometimes too, and I was having this discussion on another platform, not to diminish diagnoses and things like that, but a lot of these things that are cropping up, oppositional defiant disorder, for example, or a lot of these things, maladaptive, mood I understand there's a profession, whatever component, whatever, but also a lot of times it's also, you can't dismiss the family environment. You can't dismiss the environment that the child is in. And I think a lot of times we give our power away as parents and feel like we have to the professional said this, the professional said this is his medication, up his medication. He's still not responding, up it more. And it's like, can we take a more holistic approach to this? He's being defiant. Why is he being defiant? Does he feel invisible? Does he feel heard? All these type of things. So yes, medication, so on and so forth, has its place, but also I would say we need to, as parents, take our power back and know that we also know our children better than anyone else. And we also just need to feel empowered. And that's really the gist of, this little mini course.
Yeah. And as you can see at the bottom of our screen, if you are interested in registering for our mini course, you can go to wholeheartedmuslim.com/special needs parents mini course. Okay, again, wholeheartedmuslim.com/special needs parents mini course. I think that this course is so important, right? So it's so important for many of us, because we do struggle. We struggle with so much, as we discussed today, even in our Tarbiyyah, right? In our cultivation of our children and supporting them and having an Islamic identity. Like this is a challenge for us. But also a lot of it stems from our challenges with our own emotional states. And I think that Qadisiyah has a lot to offer in this, on this topic. And just as a human, right? Qadisiyah is the bomb, mashallah, right? Yeah. Can we acknowledge her bombness?
Yes.
Everyone is the bomb, right?
Right.
But Quincy is the
we all are.
Right?
So I don't know what's going on with my volume. Am I going hard of here speaking of
No, you know what?
Naima
is a little low. Naima is a little low. Today you are a little bit low.
Okay,
yeah, you are a little low today.
You know, when you get to that point, I don't want to age myself or anything like that, but you always complain on other people. I can't see this. Why is the writing so small? Because you need glasses.
When you gonna get your prescription in form? I'm wondering.
Right. Oh my God! I'm like, why? I can't hear.
Well, I think it's a good place for us to end. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. I appreciate the feedback and the comments. This was a really important conversation, and perhaps we will do a part 2 in the very near future, inshallah, possibly next week. Again, to sign up, wholeheartedmuslim.com/special needs parents. Tomorrow is the very last day to get the early bird special. So we do hope that you guys are tuning in. If you have any questions, please email us. You can just submit a comment through the website at wholeheartedmuslims.com.
Yes, so as Naima said, if you have a question, it's better rather than to not do anything, at least reach out to us.
Right.
And so to see if it's a go for you.
Absolutely.
Inshallah.
Thank you, ladies. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdik. Ashhadu an la ilaha illa ant. Astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Blessings have brought. This is what you strive for, what you sent for. I wanna go where no eyes never seen, no ears never